Thanks Displate for sponsoring this video.
Cut off one head, two more shall take its place.
Hey, welcome back ScreenCrush, I'm Ryan Airy, and Secret Invasion is rewriting the history of the MCU. Given what we've learned now, when you look back at the history of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, you see that everything we thought we knew was a lie, especially S.H.I.E.L.D, Hydra, Iron Man, Thor, and Captain America the Winter Soldier. So let's re-examine what we thought we knew about the Marvel Cinematic Universe and talk about how Secret Invasion has drastically changed the landscape of this franchise. In just 3 episodes, we've learned that the Skrulls did not all leave Earth in 1995, and the Furies promised to find them a home was quid quo pro. He wanted something in return. As Talos tells us in episode 3, the Skrulls made Fury what he is today.
Every time you were promoted inside S.H.I.E.L.D, we did that.
In episodes 2 and 3, Talos describes how the Skrulls helped Fury rise through the ranks of S.H.I.E.L.D, but also how the Skrulls helped S.H.I.E.L.D to become the preeminent spy agency in the world. I mean, think about it. When we first see S.H.I.E.L.D in its full glory in the Avengers, this agency is dominant on the world stage. They began as a US spy agency, but by the time of the Avengers and the Winter Soldier, Fury is reporting to the World Security Council and not the United States government. S.H.I.E.L.D outgrew the US government because, as Fury puts it,
back in the day, I had eyes everywhere, ears everywhere else.
And this was all thanks to a legion of shape-shifting spies. Well, at least 20 of them to start.
Me and 19 of my people signed on as your invisible spy network.
But when you look back, it makes you think, what about Hydra? How were these Skrulls so dominant in the intelligence world, but they never stumbled across a shadow spy organization that was right under Fury's nose? Now, there's a few possibilities I'm going to talk about, but the first one I want to discuss is that the Skrulls could have been Hydra all along.
What? Wait, how?
Okay, so stay with me here because I'm going to talk about the show Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D for a bit too. I'm not totally sure if all of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D is considered canon or if it's like a variant timeline, but the show did introduce us to some very cool concepts into the history of Hydra that I want to talk about. See, given what we learned in that show, it could even be that Hydra was founded by Skrulls.
Oh my god, what is that? That's so cool.
Oh, you like this? It's a Displate Lumino edition Guardians vs. Thanos with laser engraving, lenticular printing, holographic foil.
But how is it lighting up like that?
Well, Doug, it's made with this lumino technology, which adds an ultra-thin layer of OLEDs beneath the print.
Oh, so sweet.
Now, if you've been watching this channel for a while, then you know Displate. They're these high-quality metal posters with designs licensed by Star Wars, Marvel, DC, Star Trek, and many more. This is by far one of my favorite sponsors that we have here on the channel, and I want to thank them for sponsoring this video. And now they've released these Displate Lumino Edition posters. Now, these are limited, seasonal collectible items with a new design released every 2 weeks and staying available for just 12 weeks, and then gone forever. The Luminos are equipped with this ultra-thin motion OLED illumination that's custom designed for each artwork in the series. Each Lumino is numbered and certified, and it's mounted on a new improved 3D magnet. See, that's one thing I love about my Displates. They're sturdy metal posters, but I'm able to swap them out with the easy magnet mounting system.
But wait, does that thing need to plug into a wall?
Not at all. Well, I mean, it can, but I prefer to use the power pack they include with the package. Like, I've always loved Displate posters, but this Lumino design takes it up a notch. Displate has more than 1.5 million designs on their site, but to help you choose, I've curated some of my favorite designs on our Displates profile, and you can find many more Marvel designs in their Marvel brand shop. And we have got a special deal for our subscribers. Use our link in the description and your first 1 to 2 Displates are 27% off, but 3 or more Displates are at a whopping 37% off. This is the best deal I have ever seen for these high quality metal posters, and you can't pass it up. Now back to what I was saying. Hydra could have been founded by Skrulls.
Yeah, no way.
Yes, this theory is weird, but it makes so much sense in hindsight, and they could easily retcon it to be true. So in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D, it's revealed by Gideon Malik that Hydra is actually hundreds of years old and that they worship a mind-controlling inhuman called Hive.
Wait, Inhuman, like that real bad show on ABC?
Right, okay, I'm guessing a lot of you would rather forget the Inhuman show. Or even what happened to Black Bolt in Multiverse of Madness.
Black Bolt could destroy you with one whisper from him.
But Inhumans are very important to the Marvel Universe. They're basically humans that got superpowers from Kree aliens that experimented on their ancestors thousands of years ago. And remember, the Kree are the mortal enemies of the Skrulls. You need to know that for later. So in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D, Gideon Malik reveals that Hydra was actually trying to bring a mind-controlling Inhuman back to Earth. In other words, they were trying to weaponize an old Kree weapon. And here, there could be a Skrull connection. So if the Kree visited Earth tens of thousands of years in the past, then maybe the Skrulls thought Earth was worth checking out too. After all, all the Skrulls and the Kree were fighting a giant interstellar war against each other. So the Skrulls would want to find out why their sworn enemies, the Kree, took such an interest in Earth. So they would have disguised themselves as humans and formed an organization to find this Kree weapon, Hive, so they could use it against their enemies. But we can see Skrull behavior throughout the rest of the history of Hydra. Fast forward a few hundred years and the Red Skull takes over Hydra and uses it to start up a super soldier program, similar to Gravik's Super Skrull program. In the comics, Skrulls have been tinkering with their DNA for decades. In Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D, we saw a flashback where Peggy Carter actually captured a Kree dead body from a Hydra base. And a Hydra commander named Daniel Whitehall has a particular interest in Inhumans, who, remember, are a weapon created by the Kree.
Yeah, but that could all just be a coincidence, person.
It could be, but there were signs that Hydra was using advanced Skrull weapons even after the war. So, you remember Winter Soldier, when we found out that former Nazis recruited into S.H.I.E.L.D. after World War II were secretly starting Hydra inside of their enemies' walls. We see some of this in the show Agent Carter. And hey, even if Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. is not canon, Agent Carter definitely is. Jarvis was in Endgame. So, in the show Agent Carter, the SSR arrests a Russian hypnotist named Faustus, and then we see him get recruited by Zola.
Perhaps there is another way for us to collaborate.
Years later, in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., we see that Hydra has turned Faustus's techniques into the Faustus machine, which brainwashes people. Very similar to Bucky's brainwashing.
But what's that got to do with the Skrulls?
Well, the Skrulls have very advanced memory technology. They're fracking pods. We see that they're able to manipulate memories and even to scrub through a fractured mind. So, what if the Faustus machine and the Winter Soldier mind erasing technology were created by Hydra Skrulls, giving humans a tiny bit of their technology?
But why would the Skrulls want to do that?
Well, buddy, think about it. Off in space, the war against the Kree is going really bad for the Skrulls. The Skrulls have lost. They are being hunted. They're refugees. But these Hydra Skrulls are preparing Earth as a kind of contingency plan for their people. Now, all that's possibility number one. The Skrulls have been in Hydra the whole time. It's a major retcon that frankly undermines the story of Captain Marvel, and I don't think it's too likely. Now let's talk about possibility number two. Skrulls were recruited into Hydra. So, Hydra history unfolds just like we see in the movies, right? They grow as a beautiful parasite inside of S.H.I.E.L.D. In the show Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., we actually do see Hydra agents recruiting other S.H.I.E.L.D. agents.
Where does all that trust and loyalty lead? Abandoned in the woods or dumped at the pound?
Now, from what we can tell, the Skrulls were a very closely guarded secret. Fury kept their existence to himself and used their abilities to get himself promoted within S.H.I.E.L.D. We see at the end of Captain Marvel that he even kept secrets from Coulson.
The Kree burned your eye out because you refused to give them the Tesseract?
I will neither confirm nor deny the facts of that story.
So, let's just assume that your average rank-and-file Hydra member had no idea there were shape-shifting aliens among them. According to the Winter Soldier, almost half of S.H.I.E.L.D.'s forces were secretly Hydra, which, by the way, it's a lot of agents. Half of the world's foremost intelligence agencies were Nazis. So, now the question is, did any of these thousands of Hydra agents ever try to recruit Skrull agents thinking they were humans? So let's start off with the boring answer and say no. Maybe the number of Skrull spies was always kept at a couple dozen, but that doesn't seem likely. After all, Gravik and the other kids entered the spy field with Fury, so it's likely that S.H.I.E.L.D. in its heyday was employing hundreds, maybe even thousands of Skrull spies. But it's also possible that the Skrulls were never like regular S.H.I.E.L.D. agents. They just never wore the uniform and walked around the helicarriers. They were always in the field, disguised as humans, so they remained Fury's secret intelligence assets. Or, if the Skrulls were disguised as agents, then they would have been seen as like completely loyal to Fury, so they would have never been approached by Hydra agents. But still, if the Skrulls were such good spies, then they would have found out that Hydra was alive and well inside of S.H.I.E.L.D. See, I think it's possible that some of the Skrulls did find out about Hydra, or they were recruited.
But why wouldn't they say anything to Fury?
Because the Skrulls that were recruited into Hydra liked Hydra. This makes so much sense when you think about Skrull history. We learned in episode 2 of this show that the MCU Skrulls, like in the comics, have a very violent past.
You murdered over 2,000 innocent humans.
The Skrulls also have an emperor, like in the comics, so they're used to living under a dictatorship. Like Loki said,
"You were made to be ruled."
I just think that Hydra's ideology is more appealing to most Skrulls. Think about Hydra's like actual goal in the Winter Soldier. They've outgrown all that Nazi bullshit. Their goal is total global security, or as Steve puts it,
This isn't freedom. This is fear.
the Zola algorithm was meant to create a world where threats to the power structure of the world were neutralized before they occurred. Now, think about this in context with where the Skrulls were at that time. The Skrulls were promised a home in 1995.
While you work to keep my home safe, Carol Danvers and I will find you
a new one.
Fury did not find them a home. They continue to work for S.H.I.E.L.D. so long that their kids start working for S.H.I.E.L.D. This is like a generational debt that they're paying off. And bear in mind, Skrulls are like physically superior to humans. They live longer, they're stronger, they're faster.
I'm stronger. I'm smarter. I'm better.
They had to have started to think, why are we working for this guy? Why are our kids and grandkids going to be working for these humans when they're so inferior to us? Meanwhile, they see humans totally screwing up their planet. Pollution, climate change, crime, racism. Not to mention that they were totally unprepared for 3 alien attacks. The Destroyer, the Chitauri, and the Dark Elves. The Skrulls had to have been telling themselves that they need to end up running the world for the humans for their own protection. Or at least that they should be prepared to run the world in case humans fail. And you know what? We see this in Secret Invasion. The Prime Minister of the United Kingdom, the General Secretary of NATO, all Skrulls. And that is not part of Gravik's invasion plan. These council members were taking the place of world leaders before Gravik was put on the council.
I'm the commander of NATO. I can mobilize 1 million troops at this level.
I think that after Loki sent the Destroyer to Earth, the Skrulls started to get serious about this. They see that Fury is failing to protect the world, and that he's failing to provide them a home. I mean, Thor is an alien with technology that can teleport himself across millions of light years of space, and Fury doesn't say, hey, I've got homeless Skrulls, have you seen an empty planet out there somewhere? Following the Destroyer's appearance on Earth, Fury decides to use the Tesseract to create Hydra weapons, instead of using this teleporting rock to teleport these aliens across time and space to a new home. This is when the Skrulls started to hedge their bets and create contingency plans. They began to replace world leaders, and they started to look for ways to neutralize threats before they happen, a way to centralize global security. So I think the Skrulls would have started to hedge their bets with Hydra. Fury had spent 20 years looking for a home for them and gotten nowhere. So a few Skrulls, including the council members, decided to sit back and wait and see if Hydra won the war. I think it's likely that even Talos could have been one of them. After all, he kept pretty big secrets from Fury.
Wait. You're telling me there's 1 million Skrulls walking amongst us right now?
And when you think about it, all this makes so much sense. Resentment's been brewing for a long time. Fury was distracted from his promise, and then he entrusted global security to an unstable group of individuals. So now the Skrulls see Hydra as a kind of backup plan. So they keep a few Skrulls inside of Hydra just in case the Hydra takeover of S.H.I.E.L.D. succeeded. That way, if Hydra did take over the world, then the Skrulls would be ready to step into place and rule this planet. And if Skrulls were a part of Hydra, this would also explain how Hydra could have stayed hidden for so long. They had their own alien spies.
But the Skrulls swore loyalty to Nick Fury.
The Skrulls promised to help Fury in exchange for his help. They were never all Team Fury. They are Team Skrull. They are looking out for their own people. Look how quickly Gravik turned the Skrull Council against the humans.
Bugs aren't hypocrites, and they don't lie. And they don't go out of their way to degrade and destroy their own habitat.
They were considering this move for a long time. They are not Team Fury. Their #1 concern, as it should be, is for their own people. This would also explain how Hydra's tech was always just a little bit ahead of S.H.I.E.L.D.'s. In Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., for example, we see that a Hydra cell called Centipede had stabilized Extremis. Hydra used Loki's scepter to give powers to Pietro Maximoff. And even down through the years, with Daniel Whitehall using inhuman DNA to give himself eternal life. All very similar to the Skrulls' genetic experiments that we see in this show. So that's possibility #2. But possibility #3 is still fun, and I actually think the most plausible. I think some of the Skrulls turned to Hydra and just didn't tell the other Skrulls.
I just need your help.
Dr. Zola, this will change the world.
You see, the Skrulls are not a monolithic body. They're not a Borg hive mind. Some of them could have just sympathized with Hydra and kept that secret from the Council. Placing a few Skrull Hydra operatives in key positions would have helped keep Project Insight a secret for all those years. Hell, it would have actually helped give the algorithm data to run its predictive analysis. There are a number of people we've seen throughout the MCU who could have been Skrull operatives and who could have been Hydra Skrull operatives. And one of them is my all-time favorite fan theory that would change the entire scope of the MCU. But before I get to that mystery person, here's a few other names. Jasper Sitwell. It was weird how he knew so many specific names from the algorithm's list.
Bruce Banner, Stephen Strange, anyone who's a threat.
Like, Stephen Strange would have been a doctor with mutilated hands right about then. Why would he single him out among the thousands of other names in the list?
Because he was a Skrull.
Exactly. Also, Gary Shandling, Senator Stern. He harassed Tony Stark in Iron Man 2 and turned out to be Hydra.
I tried to play ball with these ass clowns.
F*** you, Mr. Stark.
and we've seen Skrulls replace world leaders. And if Rhodey has been a Skrull for years, then it means that Skrulls are trying to get people close to superheroes. So Stern would have made total sense. A leader who's trying to reel the heroes in to clear the way for a Skrull invasion. And, you know, maybe Hayward from WandaVision was a Skrull, or even Hydra. After all, he conducts illegal experiments to create his own supervillain. Total Hydra move. But you know, we also see that S.H.I.E.L.D is like staffed with Skrulls already, so I think it's more likely that the guy's just an asshole who shoots kids.
Have fun in prison!
Now, I also think it's very likely that Damage Control was infiltrated by Hydra or Skrulls or both. When we first see them in Spider-Man Homecoming, they're a simple cleanup agency funded by Tony Stark.
In accordance with Executive Order 396B, all post-battle cleanup operations are now under our jurisdiction.
But then, following the collapse of the Sokovia Accords and the blip, they have become a superhero enforcement agency. They arrested Peter Parker, seized Stark drones, raided a school, and hunted down Kamala Khan. I mean, look, if you're a secret organization trying to take over the world, you would first want to take over the agency that polices superheroes. Or, in the case of Damage Control, slowly transform that agency into an organization that polices heroes.
Wait, I thought Hydra was defeated in Captain America the Winter Soldier. How could they be Damage Control?
Yeah, but I don't think they're actually gone. Hydra will never be gone.
You think he's gone? He's not gone! That's the whole point! He's never gone!
In the show Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., S.H.I.E.L.D. agents spent years fighting Hydra after S.H.I.E.L.D.'s fall. Hell, we even saw Hydra agents in Ant-Man.
Hell, S.H.I.E.L.D. and Hydra don't even exist anymore, but now Hank Pym.
Hydra always gets resurrected. Hell, it's their slogan.
Cut off one head, two more shall take its place.
But my favorite possibility for a Skrull Hydra agent is Obadiah Stane. Years ago, I posted a theory that Obadiah Stane was a Hydra agent because of this line.
Weapons that will help steer the world back on course. Put the balance of power in our hands.
The power belongs in our hands. Whose hands? Hydra's hands. Frankly, Stane makes some really stupid choices in the movie Iron Man that could only be explained if he's Hydra. It makes no sense for a leader of a huge multinational corporation that makes billions selling to the US military to sell a few very traceable weapons to terrorists.
What were you thinking?
I mean, look, maybe he was selling Stark-branded weapons to frame Tony, but the risk is just stupid. If he was Hydra, though, it would have made perfect sense. And Stane would be a perfect person for a Skrull to replicate. He's close to Tony Stark, the engineer who creates humanity's most advanced weapons. He was also friends with Howard Stark, so he has a connection to Nick Fury since Howard Stark founded S.H.I.E.L.D. And the two of them knew one another, so it's also a way to keep an eye on Nick Fury. It also explains why Stane was so keen to build a super weapon for his own personal use. The Skrulls needed a weapon that could fight this new Iron Man.
I mean, it's not technically accurate to see it's a gold titanium alloy.
Now, in our Rhodey Skrull video, we posited that Rhodey would have been replaced for this same reason, to infiltrate Tony's inner circle and earn the trust of superheroes.
But we see Obadiah Stane die, and didn't turn back into a Skrull.
Did we see that, though? Look, Stane falls into an explosion, but Skrulls are tough, and this Skrull was wearing highly advanced armor. Skrull Stane could have lived, transformed, and gotten the hell out of there. But I will say that the show is unlikely to address any of this or to include agencies like Damage Control and its conspiracy. It's one of the drawbacks of a Disney Plus show. The budget is lower, the scale is smaller, and we're just not going to get the enormous sweeping story that we had in the comics. The comic book Secret Invasion affected every Marvel comic book. Don't get me wrong, the show's fun, it's a cool Nick Fury spy adventure, but personally, I wish the scale was amped up to the level of a movie. And just a reminder, everyone, to get your Lumino limited edition Displate, check out our link in the description. But I want to hear from all of you on this. What do you think? Let me know in the comments below or at me on Twitter. And if it's your first time here, please subscribe, smash that bell for alerts. For ScreenCrush, I'm Ryan Airy.